allies of Israel condemned a sharp rise in attacks on Palestinian civilians by Jews who are armed and who've settled in the West Bank. Religious Jews believe the land was given to them by God.
Someone shouted, "Get out quickly, settlers are coming." Bilal asked the kids to hurry back home. As he and I were leaving, he realized he forgot his phone. A few minutes later, I heard gunshots.
Bilal's killers were Israeli settlers, whose illegal settlements now surround all sides of the Saleh family village of El Sawiyyah.
Now, the UN's top court is opening a week of hearings on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories. More than 50 countries are expected to give evidence at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. The hearings, requested by the UN General Assembly, are separate from the ongoing genocide case brought by South Africa. And there are currently 144 settlements in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, all illegal under international law.
So here's a bit from the New York Times interview with a West Bank settler, which I think is very cute and very cool. The way that the New York Times framed this interview. This is a West Bank settler that the New York Times talking to, who says, "Yes, I can admit that there is something fascist about me. And I'm not hiding it. I don't believe there's any other way." Really?
Uncensored lack of political correctness definitely shocked me.
The lack of political correctness definitely shocked me. To which Izzy said, "Israeli, I'm a fascist." New York Times, how un-PC. Israeli, I'm literally a fascist. I'm a Nazi without the anti-Semitism. New York Times, isn't this an interesting person? Israeli, I have killed and I will kill again. I kill for the joy of killing. New York Times, this conflict is so ancient and intractable. Dude. Oh, by the way, this interview is not a new one. This is a very old interview, just for the record. It's funny to think that this is like, this is not a new interview at all. It might be like a couple, like maybe 6 years. I don't know where the original is, but we can watch it. Oh, Natural Born Settlers. Up 2019.
Tel Aviv. As Israel grows more nationalist, Tel Aviv is the last stronghold.
Sorry, bro, chill. Okay, take her out. Let her pee too. You brought Fifi in here. You riled her up, and now you're walking away. That's insane. No, it's not Jeff, dude. It's Murat.
Of our nation's liberals. It is a super cool cosmopolitan city and the place I call home. In 2016, I decided to say goodbye to Tel Aviv and spend the summer with the Israelis that I disagree with the most.
By the way, this is written from the perspective of a liberal Zionist. That's why she said 65% voted left. I need you to understand something. A lot of the terminology that you are hearing here, you must reposition your understanding of Israel and your understanding of Israeli politics. When they talk about, like, when a liberal Zionist presents this issue, it's still very much in support of, no, she said left Tel Aviv. Yeah, I know. But when she's talking about, like, they voted left in Tel Aviv, they're still talking about, like, well, I don't know what the left party was. She's not talking about, like, Habash or something. She's not talking about, like, the actual communist party or anything like that. She's talking about a liberal party, which is still very much right-wing.
Settlers.
Yesh Atid.
Since Israel's ongoing military occupation of the West Bank that started in 1907, Jewish settlers have moved to the Palestinian territories into settlements that are illegal according to the international law.
For the record, I do personally love the liberal Zionist arguments that, like, single out Netanyahu as the standalone individual responsible for all of Israel's, like, right-wing reactionary sentiment against Palestinians, as though, like, liberal Zionists also do not agree with those things when push comes to shove, like post-October 7, as we saw that is the case. If anything, liberal Zionists are probably doing a better job overall of trying to defend, like, the favorability of Israel in the Western world, right? Like, they have a better understanding than the fucking psychopathic, like, Likudniks do, right? in the sense that like they're like, hey, we hate the fucking settlers because they kind of fuck the bag up a little bit. We hate the settlers because they're unhinged. We hate the settlers because they make us look bad. We hate the settlers because they're bad guys in general, of course. But like also beyond that, there is a very understandable argument that if you're a liberal Zionist, you're like, dude, fuck off with the West Bank shit. Like you're legitimately fucking up the bag. You're legitimately fucking up the optics here. And they're right. They're right. The reason why 50% of the American population now believes that Israel is doing a genocide in Gaza is, well, because Israel is doing a genocide in Gaza. But the fact that they're seeing it now of the Western world is partially because like they did not manage this conflict well at all. So that's something to remember when we watch this. They live under military control that limits their basic right, like movement, free speech, and self-determination.
As Israeli society polarizes around views of the occupation, I found myself increasingly curious about Israelis my age who grew up in those settlements, who were born into this reality. I ended up in one of the oldest Israeli settlements called Tekoa, which was founded in 1977. About an hour drive from Tel Aviv, it is a world apart. Isolated in the Judean hills and surrounded by Palestinian villages.
This is a good graphic, even though it's 3.5 years old. Israel's unwieldy anti-Netanyahu coalition. An ideologically diverse mix of Israeli opposition parties has formed an alliance dubbed the Change Movement to oust Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But apart from having a common enemy, the coalition members have little else in common, which will quickly become apparent once policymaking begins. The pro-Netanyahu bloc had Likud, the religious Zionist far right, and the Shas religious right, United Torah Judaism. And then the Change bloc had the undeclared Arabs, Meretz, Labor, Blue and White, Yesh Atid, Ra'am, Yisrael Beitenu, and New Hope, and Yamina. It's a consortium of a center left to like liberal left positions. So they're identified as left, center, left, right, and Arab. It's always awesome. I'm sorry, but it's fucking hilarious when like Western liberal media adopts like when they're obviously covering like but it's true they are those are the Arab parties, but it's always funny because like when Western liberal outlets try to like cover what's going on in Israel, which is a apartheid state, but an apartheid state that we are aligned with, they try to make sense of it, but they have to use the terminology created within Israel. And because it's an apartheid state, you end up writing things that you don't even think about that like come across as insane. That's a very funny thing that you just called out with respect to like the Arab parties. It's not like there aren't Arab Jews. Of course there are. There are millions of them in Israel, but they're declared Jewish and therefore have a different status, I guess. Hadash being, not really an Arab party, but joining it on the Arab list. But they're communist, and therefore they're also anti-Zionist, and therefore Arab, which is, again, it goes back to that same distinction. Because Israel's an apartheid state, is a Jewish supremacist apartheid state, like as by designation, the distinction between their population, the distinction between their demographics is literally Arab or Jewish, when that distinction is incredibly stupid. It's not correct at all. There's a shit ton of Arab Jews, but they are not considered Arab. They're considered Jewish. Hadash base of support is and always has been Palestinian citizens of Israel. Yes, but like, I mean, what do you call it? Ofer Kasif, for example, is not, he's Jewish. By Israeli standards, he would be a Jewish citizen of Israel. He would not be considered Arab. Anyway, let's continue. Let's watch this. Like, it's crazy because it's like it's a settlement in the West Bank, and there's like secular people living there.
I rented a small apartment on the corner of Hospitality Road and Joy Street, and I thought to myself, these are two things I'll definitely need here. After all, It's not every day that a liberal from Tel Aviv moves to a settlement. Once I settled in, to make myself feel more at home, I set up a small cafe and waited for company. Well, apparently coffee is not in demand in Tkoa, as well as a liberal with 3 cameras. For a while, it seemed like the only locals who visited my table were flies, a cat, and my only new friend in town, Matanya.
באת לפה ורצת לעשות סרט, נכון? זה כל כך קשה. תחשבי עד כמה קשה זה לעשות פה שלום.
But being stubborn eventually paid off. יאללה, נדבר קצת.
כן. בתור ילדה זה היה נהדר, בתור מתבגרת פחות. עכשיו יישוב ענק. זה היה ממש ממש חור, והייתי כזה, למה הבאתם אותי לחור הזה?
תוך אני בטוח שפחדתי, כאילו, זה לא פשוט לגדול במציאות כזאת. כשאתה שומע על הרצח הזה של דברים שהם שנה מעליך, שכל יום יש פה משהו, ברור שפחדתי. הייתי בן 13, 14.
I'm glad that they're brave, though, honestly. Like, they're brave enough to fucking settle in territory that does not belong to them, both historically nor according to international law. You know what I mean? It's so sick.
אני לא יודע עד כמה באמת אפשר להבין בגיל הזה, כאילו, את המשמעות העמוקה של הדברים.
כשאתה חושב עכשיו על סיטואציות של אתה נוסע וליד הרודיון זורקים אבנים, ואבא יוצא מהסובארו סטיישן עם M16 ארוך ומפרק מחסנית על הקיר כדי לייצר הרתעה, כי זה מה שהיה, אז ככה התנהלו העניינים. אז עכשיו כשאני חושב על זה, זה...
הארדקור.
זה הארדקור. בשביל ילד זה מעניין, אבל לא הארדקור. אבל עכשיו אתה יודע שכן.
ואיך הסבירו לך את זה, נגיד?
שהערבים רוצים להרוג אותנו. זה די ברור.
Unlike Tekoa, which is considered a moderate settlement, the Jewish settlement in the Palestinian city of Hebron is the most extremist of all, where extreme settlers live in the midst of a large Palestinian city. Moria grew up there.
הפחד הכי גדול שלי בתור ילדה זה היה מדקירה. כל הזמן הייתי מנסה לדמיין, אם הוא יבוא מכאן, אז יהיה לי אבן ביד וזה, וכל הזמן היה הרבה סביב זה, אבל את חיה במציאות חיים כזאת, שאם את מפחדת...
If you're scared and an Arab comes at you and attacks you on the street...
וערבי בא ותוקף אותך ברחוב, ואת לא מחזירה ולא עושה שום
דבר,
אז הצעד הבא אחרי זה ללכת רק בליווי, ואחר כך להתמגן, ואחר כך לא לצאת מהבית, ואחר כך לא להיות במקום.
Oh, and then the next step is not to be here. Oh, shit, dude. Well, that's a good step. I think that's a good step.
המקום הזה. אז לי בתור ילדה היה תיקים במשטרה על כל מיני האשמות כאלה.
So as a teenager, I had a criminal record for disturbing the order and spitting on Arabs and such.
הפרת סדר, יריקה על ערבים, דברים כאלה.
It seems like we grew up in totally different worlds.
כשגדלתי פה, הכל היה מאוד
When I grew up here, everything was very segregated between us and the Arabs. The mentality here was that they are enemies. We need to be careful.
צריך להיזהר מהם. הם באים מדי פעם, הם פועלים, הם באים לבנות.
They occasionally come here for work, building houses, and that's it.
לא מפריע לך שהילדים שלך גדלים פה, כאילו? שזה מעצב גם אותם באיזושהי צורה?
כן, אבל אני עומד על המשמר מהבחינה של זכויות אדם.
Yes, but I keep close watching human rights and values.
אבל ברור שהם קולטים הרבה מסרים סמויים, תת-קרקעיים כאלה של... איך נקרא לזה? אם אתה עובר יום-יום בשער ורואה 200 פועלים פלסטינים בשער, זה משהו שכן כדאי להיות מודע אליו. אז בהתחלה זה מציק לך ואתה מתהפך קצת בבטן על סוג של שוק עבדים. אבל בפעם ה-30 אתה כבר נהיה אדיש לזה. אני לא יודע איך הם יתרגמו את המציאות שהם חיים בה עכשיו לתפיסת עולם שלהם ולערכים שלהם.
While I knew Palestinians come in and out of the settlements every day to work, building more of the buildings that they will never be allowed to live in, seeing them line up to enter settlements that represent their oppression with my own eyes was very unsettling.
I'm not kidding. Like, even from afar, when I look at this, it makes me go crazy. But like, if I were to live in this environment, if I saw this every day, I feel like I would go insane. Like, I would try to dedicate my entire life to, you know, not allowing this to continue. And there are Israeli people, there are Israeli nationals in this chat that definitely take that approach. But it just blows my fucking mind to be at the heart of it. You know what I mean? Like, it blows my mind that you're like, yeah, no, this is like pretty fucked up. It's like a slave market. Oh well, I'm paying attention to the human rights stuff. It just doesn't make any sense.
דווקא כשנסעתי לניו יורק וחזרתי, פתאום כאילו ראיתי הכל בבהירות כזה.
When I traveled to New York and came back, I actually saw, wow, who are the people who live right next to us?
אני רואה אותם כל כך קרוב,
I see their houses so close to us, I can hear them.
שומעים אותם, רואים לפעמים את הילדים,
You see their kids playing soccer, I'm intrigued.
מעניין אותי, יש פה אוכלוסייה שלמה.
There's a whole population here that no one wants any kind of human contact with.
לא יודעת, ליצור איזשהו קשר אנושי כלשהו. וואלה, מודע, אף פעם לא ישבתי וחשבתי מה עם השכנה הערבייה סביבי. לא חושבת כאילו שזה מחוסר אכפתיות. מבחינתי זה ברגע שזה מצב של עם עוין עם, מבחינתי זה לא רלוונטי.
Then her feelings are irrelevant.
הקיום שלנו
Our existence depends on this country.
אני מאוד אוהבת את המדינה הזאת, אני מאוד רוצה להישאר.
I love this country, I want to stay here. But this place has become nationalist, religious, even fascist.
זה עצוב לי. כן, נכון, אני לא יכולה לומר, אני באמת יכולה לומר
Yes, I can admit that there's something fascist about me.
אני לא...
To be fair, you would have grown up differently from how you've grown up in Turkey. He said you become indifferent to it all and you care less and less. I mean, dude, the point is, like, I come from a very fucking nationalistic country myself. So, no, you don't have to be a fucking product of the nationalism that you experience, okay? What are you talking about? There are Turkish chatters in here who still live in Turkey who are surrounded by ultra-nationalist sentiment. One of the major things is, like, people always forget that, like, there is a direct fucking analog here that I can make as a Turkish person who does not deny the Armenian genocide, okay? I fucking grew up in an environment where that was not even a question. It was like, it was a definitional, like, that's what I was taught in school, that it was a lie, you know what I mean? So the notion that you could overcome that is not an impossibility. It's not at all. I know it from my firsthand experience. You know what I mean? It's fucking so stupid when people talk about it like it's impossible. It's not impossible at all.
מסתירה את זה, אני פשוט לא מאמינה שיש דרך אחרת, באמת.
Your uncensored lack of political correctness definitely shocked me, but also made me want to hear more.
אנחנו יש לנו משק חקלאי, ויש לנו לא מעט עובדים ערבים, שזה משהו שהוא פחות נפוץ פה. אני הכרתי ערבים מגיל מאוד צעיר,
Like, plenty of Americans learn the history. I guess the difference is, like, with the Armenian genocide or with like the indigenous genocide in America and the foundation of the United States of America. It's like things that happened in the past. So while there is a lot of whitewashing and revisionism and lies that governments deliberately tell about their own past, about their own nefarious history, it's easier to, like, recognize it than an ongoing genocide, an ongoing ethnic cleansing, and on top of that, a deliberate attempt to continue doing ethnic cleansing in an apartheid state. That's what I guess makes it more difficult for these people. It's just like they're living in it, though. It's crazy. Do you notice how all the labor is done by Arab workers? I mean, yeah, exactly. I know I get the culture. I grew up with Arabs. Like, this guy, like, the wokest guy is still saying I grew up with Arabs, right? Not realizing that, like, hella Arab Jews exist in Israel. But that distinction is an important one, because what does it mean to be an Arab? What does it mean to be an Arab in Israel, or in a territory that Israel is currently occupying illegally? It means you are not Jewish. That's what that means. So you have to understand, it's shorthand for not Jewish, because Jewish Arabs are not considered Arabs. They're considered Jewish.
אני מרגיש שוני מאוד מאוד גדול. אבל יש המון ערכים מאוד מרשימים. כשאתה רואה את הפנים מאחורי האנשים, אתה רואה דברים בצורה יותר מורכבת.
And somehow you claim this is not a religious conflict? Yes, because I'm not a fucking dummy, the real Slim Fatty. I recognize that this is not a religious conflict, and I recognize that at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break. Religion is just a tool. That's it. It's just a tool. It has nothing to do with religion at all. Anyway, the Jews versus Arab designation is political the same way you describe being white is. Exactly. What is this?
Despite the peace and love and the hippie vibe of Tekoa, sometimes the complexity of the tension here slaps you in the face.
כמה שעות לפני כניסת השבת, משפחת מרק עושה את דרכה מעתניאל לירושלים. הם נוסעים על כביש 60, לפתע נפתחת לעברם אש מרכב חולף. המחבלים יורים תוך כדי נסיעה ונמלטים. הרב
How do settlers maintain cash flow and resources? It always looks like they're in the middle of nowhere. Wonderful question. It's called the Israeli government. That's right. As a matter of fact, part of the reason why in Israel proper, part of the reason why like a lot of Israelis, liberal Zionists and all, will oftentimes say things like, yeah, fuck these guys, they're freeloaders, is because they are. They get government subsidies.
מיכאל מיקי מרק, אבי המשפחה שנהג ברכב, נפגע אנושות מהירי ונהרג.
My next-door neighbor's family was attacked in the shooting ambush, killing her father and leaving her mother and 2 siblings wounded. Her cry and weep across our shared wall when she first got the message tore my heart apart.
הפיגוע עשה לי ממש קשה.
לך.
כן.
זה קשה. זה קשה כי זה לא בעיתון. זה מאוד מוחשי, זה מאוד קרוב אליך. זה גם לא רק שזה מאוד קרוב אליך, זה גם מאוד קל לך להחליף את עצמך בסיטואציה.
Most of the people my age I chatted with were honest about the negative effect of the settlements on Palestinians who are repressed as long as they are occupied. I wondered how they still choose to live here.
אני חשוב לי לחיות במדינה יהודית. חשוב לי. כשאני חורש את השדות שלי ואני לפעמים מוצא איזה חרס בשדה, כן, זה לוקח אותי למקומות שאני מאוד אוהב להיות בהם, שאני מרגיש שאני נמצא בארץ של יהודים, ולפני, כמו שלפני 2,000 ו-2,500 שנה היו פה יהודים, ובדיוק חרשו את השטח שאני חורש, וזה לא הגזמה מה שאני אומר, זה אחד לאחד. מצד שני, יש פה ערבים, יש פה הרבה ערבים, הם בני אדם כמו כולם. לכל האנשים יש זכויות מסוימות, וצריך לוודא שיהיה להם את זה. איך משלבים את כל זה בתוך העובדה שיש סכסוך מאוד מדמם, ואנשים נהרגים, וזה לא פשוט. וגם כשהם מסתכלים מסביב, הדברים הם קורעי לב. ישראל רק עשתה פה דברים כשהיא הייתה חייבת לעשות פה דברים.
Oh, come on, bro.
היה איום עליה, בוא נגיד. היא אף פעם לא עניין אותה.
That's insane, dog. You're literally living. You have settled in the West Bank. You have settled in the West Bank. The notion that a settler in the West Bank is saying like Israel had to do what it had to do to protect itself is insane. Like, what are you talking about? You had to do what you had to do? Like, you did not have to do that.
לדאוג שלאנשים פה יהיו חיים תנובים ותנאים מינימליים ובסיסיים וזכויות ודברים מהסוג הזה. הנה, אנחנו משלמים על זה עכשיו. הנקודה הכי בסיסית היא מדינת ישראל צריכה להחליט, או שהיא רוצה להכיל ריבונות על השטח הזה, או שהיא לא רוצה להכיל ריבונות. אם היא לא רוצה להכיל ריבונות, שתמסור אותו למישהו אחר.
הרבה מהאנשים פה, בייחוד הדור שגדל פה, רוצים פשוט לחיות פה. אני לא מכיר מקום אחר. נולדתי פה. זה המקום שאני חי בו, זה המקום שאני אוהב אותו. אני אוהב את הנוף, אני אוהב את האווירה, ואני רוצה לחיות פה.
אני מבינה, זאת אומרת, את ישראל בקטע שהיא לא תפנה עכשיו את כל ההתנחלויות. זה לא יקרה.
מה חושבת שיהיה? או מה היית רוצה שיהיה?
קונפדרציה. זה אומר שאף אחד לא צריך ללכת לשום מקום, כאילו כל אחד יכול להמשיך לחיות איפה שהוא חי, תחת ריבונות או ישראלית או פלסטינאית. זהו, תנועה חופשית. מה שהייתי רוצה שיהיה, שכל האנשים במרחב הזה יחיו חיים טובים. זה שינוי תפיסה. כי התפיסה הייתה כל הזמן שמישהו צריך לוותר על משהו.
Okay, I mean, that's good. That's a good take. She's right. Saying that it doesn't matter who controls it, like, it just needs to be one state, a confederation, which is my argument as well, which is that, like, you can't fucking purge 750,000 people. It would be unjustifiable. It would be horrible at this point, even though they are objectively in the wrong. So I guess, you know, there's one person, there's one point for the settlers here.
אבל אני כן, בעזרת השם. מה היית רוצה לעשות, כאילו? הייתי רוצה שכל התנחלות תעשה מפגשים עם הכפר הסמוך, עם אנשים מהכפר הסמוך. אפשר כאילו שזה יהיה הדוגמה לדו-קיום. לכן צריך כאילו להפסיק, להפנות את המבט לפוליטיקאים, כאילו, ולפוליטיקה. פשוט צריך להקים תנועה עממית, כאילו, של היגיון, של בריאות, מחשבה, של רצון אמיתי לתיקון, ופשוט לפעול ביחד.
On my last day in Tkoa, Matanya stopped by for a farewell chat.
סיכום.
כאילו מצד אחד, יש דברים שלמדתי על הרבה אנשים שפה, שהם מדברים על הרמוניה עם האנשים שמסביב. אני רציתי להקשיב, לא להגיד, תראו את אלה כבר עם התווית עליהם, כאילו, צריך להקשיב.
זאת אומרת, אתה בקלות יכול להגיד לעצמך, בגלגול אחר, אני בדיוק מוצא את עצמי פה ועם הדעות האלה.
ולא. אני גם לא חושבת שאנשים פה...
Yeah, it's funny because this interview is propaganda, and it's not even doing a good job, specifically because living equal to Palestinians, I think, would be a very good punishment. They might just leave. Yeah, no, this person is not wrong. It's a self-solving problem. A one-state solution. No, the one-state solution is a self-solving solution because the mega racists will 100%, undoubtedly, unless they're doing like acts of terror directly, will leave.
עושים את השיעורי בית האלה שאני עשיתי פה.
בטוח שלא.
אתם פה.
לא עושים, נכון?
לא שמים את עצמכם.
נכון.
גם לא שם הם פלסטינים להבין את ה...
It would be really funny for the South Africans who left after the apartheid ended in South Africa and went to Israel. Where are they going to go? Where will the poor white supremacists that left one apartheid state to the next, where will they live? Someone has to think about the racists, dog. I love that someone said Turkey. Yeah, dude, I'm sure they would love living in a 98% Muslim country, comprised almost entirely of Muslims. They'd be like, wow, it's so sick. I'm moving to a overwhelming majority Muslim nation with like 100 million Muslims, dude.
הדברים שלהם, מבינים את זה שוב מנקודת הגובה הזאת שיש לכם עליהם, בעיניי.
כן? לא, צודק.
וגם, זה משהו מאוד חבל לי, זה הנתק הזה בין השמאל לימין בארץ שיש עכשיו, שהוא בינינו אנחנו לא עושים את זה, כאילו.
נכון.
במבט לאחור, כאילו, לא היית מעדיף אם היית גדל, כאילו, בתל אביב?
אני חושב שזה לא נורמלי לגור במצב כזה, לגדול במצב כזה. אני חושב שכל מי שגדל בדור שלי, פה, בכל יהודה ושומרון, סובל מפוסט-טראומה ברמה כזו או אחרת. בטח שאנחנו, וזה לא צריך להיות ככה. אבל אני לא מתחרט שגדלתי פה. הייתה לי ילדות טובה, באמת.
תראי, אני גם תוהה הרבה פעמים אם הייתי גדלה במציאות אחרת ובמצב אחר, אם היו לי דעות אחרות. באמת, אין לי מושג, אני לא יודעת להגיד לך. זה כאילו, אנחנו מושפעים בסופו של דבר מאוד מאיפה שגדלנו. אני לא יודעת באמת מה, כאילו, לאן הדעות שלנו מגיעות.
That woman's a teacher. It's pretty funny to think about because she literally said, I'm a fascist. I'm a bit of a fascist is what she said.